Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This finger show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Gotham as well as the latest episode of Van Helsing. Like always, if I'm talking about something you don't want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include the time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I had to say about this week's episode of Gotham, you can skip to what I had to say about this week's episode of Van Helsing. But the first thing I want to talk about is this week's episode of Gotham. Another great episode. I love what they did with Sophia. Like, they show you just how good she is at this. It's like, I haven't just been sitting on my hands like this in these past few months. I've been getting to work. The fact of the matter is, like, you know, it's kind of interesting because there's a lot of things to this. For one, at first I was wondering, is she just using Jim? Or, like, just what she did at the beginning. It's like, oh, well, you know, Penguin slid out the way. It's like, maybe there could be something you with me. And he's like, no, that could never work out. And he's like, he was almost like, it's a little short-sighted of you to think that Penguin wouldn't find out. But at first I was like, I kind of had the feeling she was just using Jim, but then it's like, oh, maybe she does genuinely have feelings for Jim. But it's like, no, her plan from the very beginning was always to kind of entice Jim a little bit, so that basically get him under her fingers, just like, you know, under her thumb, I guess it would be the proper turn of phrase, like she has Penguin, and make them fight. Because, like, she herself doesn't have the muscle to take down Penguin herself. Even with any people she might have turned, that's not enough to take down Penguin. But if she has, like, the GCPD on her side, if she's got Jim under her thumbs, but I think that was, I don't know whether it seems like it wasn't something that she necessarily accounted for. Maybe. I don't know, because there's a lot of things, like, that's the thing about Sophia. This episode showed you just how dangerous she is. She's got so much planned out. The moment Penguin confronted her, she stopped. It's just like, oh, bravo, look at you. You figured it out. It's like, she immediately cut out, like, the crocodile tears. It's like, you're very good at that. Then the whole dentist situation, it's like, I got your whole family, like, playing, like, you didn't think I wanted this to happen. I knew that the person who'd be torturing me would be you. She's like, even talking about the fact that she's got people within Penguin's organization under her belt. I don't know whether that's true or not. It's hard to say what's truth and what's lie with her, because she keeps a lot close to the vest. Like, even with her and Jim planning this whole thing out, she's kept a lot of what her ultimate plan has always been from Jim. And it seems like her plan was to use Jim and the GCPD to take Penguin down. But obviously Jim's not going to go down for that, because, you know, being kind of trying to be straight-laced, because he has a whole situation with Pig at the time. It's like, well, Pig is trying to say we're the same, and he wants to fix Gotham in his own way. And I think in Jim's eyes, it's like, if he follows the same path as Sophia, then he's just kind of going down that bad route. It's like, no, we need to go about saving Gotham in a good way, essentially the right way. So. But then she gets kidnapped by Barbara, Tabitha, and Celine. And it's like, that kind of put a little wrinkle in her plan. Then, like, Jim was like, he made a deal with Penguin. I'll let her go. I'll send her back home if you drop this whole situation. So, and basically Penguin also had a promise to let go of the licenses and stuff like that. And so we kind of go back to how things were before. You commit a crime, you get busted by the GCPD. So that was just kind of interesting to me. But Sophia planned it out because she got Martine kidnapped. Which, interesting enough, I had a feeling about that, because, like, there was that time they ran into each other in the hallway, like that was the previous episode, wasn't it? That whole thing happened, and it's like, all that was like part of her plan too, because Martine's like, she told me to tell you about her kissing, and it's like, all that was for her to be in that position with the dentist so that she can ultimately get away. It's like, she really planned this out. It's not like she just fiddled with her fingers the entire time, like, oh, like, taking these small moves. She's been making big moves that we haven't even seen. And it's like, holy crap, you are very, very devious and very good at this. Like, holy crap. Like, I think she's easily setting herself up to easily be one of them. Like, you thought she was, like I said, because it seemed like she was in so much in the middle. But from the very beginning, I was like, you know, when it's all said and done, Jim's going to regret bringing her to town, because she's going to be a lot more of a hassle than he thought she would be. Like, and I think this is her setting herself up to be easily top tier villain for this season with this whole situation, especially because everything's going to end with her and Penguin going to war. Penguins come to get Martine, and, like, I had a feeling that whole situation was going to go down the way it did. I thought was so interesting. The fact is that I thought the moment he's like, oh, it's not your fault, I was like, is he about to kill Martine? It's like, no way he's going to kill a kid or something. Like, there's no way that's going to happen. And then sends Martine to the car, and it's like, I won't let you use him anymore, and blows it up. I was like, what? No! I was like, no way. Because even Sophia didn't see that coming. I was like, that was something, because, like, for Penguin, it's like that's a problem too. She underestimated Penguin from the very beginning. You don't underestimate him. Like, Penguin is pretty smart. Like, let's not forget he took down someone like Ed too. So yes, a lot of times Penguin can be rash and played by emotions, but a lot of times like, the thing is when you put Penguin in a corner, he can strike back. That's probably one of the times he's most vicious is when you put him in a corner. Because let's not forget, everyone that's ever stood in Penguin's way is gone. Whether it be Fish, whether it's Don Falcone, whether it's Moretti, like everyone that stood in his way has led to him being where he is right now has been taken out of the picture. Obviously, Ed's still kind of at play, but still, like, he's kind of removed for right now. So it's just so interesting to me. He's kind of on occasion a good tactician. But that whole, like, I was like, wow, I didn't expect him to do it. But it's like, he faked it. I was like, Martinez fine. I was like, I should have expected it because he took a liking to it. It's like, there's no way he's going to kill a kid. I even thought it was kind of interesting. Penguin pointed it out to Sophia. It's like, your dad's not going to be okay with you killing, like, using a kid as leverage. That's disgusting. It's like, my dad would be okay with, my dad would be proud of me doing this. And it's like, I don't know, like, even Falcone has his limits of, like, how far he would go, I think, like, I don't think he's ever crossed the line like that because for Falcone, it's always been, he's done some stuff in the past, especially the way she's talked about him, like, earlier in the season. But it's like, when it comes down to it, like, Falcone, like, I think it's also because he's grown with age, too. It's one of those situations where it's like, you're not as, because he's not in a position where he needs to lead with fear or control people. I think it's just like he's garnered the respect over the years that he doesn't really need to act the way that he might have when he was younger. He was a lot more reckless, a lot more willing to prove himself. And it seems like Sophia's in that situation too, because he's like, Penguin pokes at her because it's like, you're seeking daddy's approval. And it's like, ultimately that's what this all seems like it is. Like, she wants her dad's approval because before, her dad was so caught up in his work, she's even talked about it herself. And it's like, she got accustomed to that world, so she wants to come back to Gotham to prove herself so her dad would look at her for once. I mean, because it seems like even though Mario probably wasn't, definitely wasn't in that line of work, it seems like their dad still paid more attention to him because it's like, well, because I wanted to make sure my son stays out of this life. And it's just like, because it's that situation where it's like, it's only now that he's older and sick that he wants to spend time with her. And it's just like, but even then, she probably feels like, no, I really don't have your attention until I prove myself as a Falcone, so. Which, in a twisted way, like, Penguin was, right? He was like, but my parents loved me. Both his parents loved him. It just kind of tragic situations took his parents away from him. So it's like, but ultimately, his parents were proud of him and they loved him. So we don't know anything about Miss Falcone's wife, or Sophia and Mario's mom. Like, that situation hasn't come up yet, but this has left like Sophia kind of off balance because even Barbara's like, you lost, just call it quits. Because for them, this whole situation was all about, I love the fact is that they kidnapped like her and like, okay, we kidnapped you because you're Penguin's best friend. That's like, really? You picked the worst time to decide to kidnap me, especially because like I was in there before you took me. I was in there about to be tortured. And it's like, wait, what? She's lying. It's like, nope, apparently not. I love that they had the perfect plan, just the worst timing, that they had come sooner, like struck like a day or two sooner, like before Penguin found out. I mean, to be fair, once again, that was all part of Sophia's plan. So, like I said, because the whole situation also puts in question like her feelings for Jim. Were they all part of a ploy? Was there really something between them or not? I don't know. It seems like she was just manipulating him from the beginning. I kind of had that feeling, but I was like, the fact that she was acting the way she was acting in the beginning of the episode, I was like, she genuinely has feelings. Oh, never mind. It was all a ploy to manipulate him anyway. But Barbara and Tabitha and Selena are going to be working with her because it's like, she promised to give them what they want. So which then begs I don't know if you can't trust Sophia. Like, I don't think she'll hand over anything. Like, it seems like once she gets that taste of that power, I don't think she's going to be willing to let anything go. So basically now this situation is turned into a war between the Falcones and Sophia in particular versus Penguin, who's saying that he's got something in mind for her. I wonder, is it going to be related to her dad? Because I think at this point in time, the only person who can probably slow her down is her dad. It's like, once he finds out the truth. I mean, he might be pissed at Jim because it's like, you're putting another one of my children in a dangerous situation. You killed one son, now you killed my son, and now you're gonna put my daughter in a situation where she could get killed. Because to me, I threw out a theory earlier on. I was like, like the reason she's here and everything, like no one's really contacted Don Falcone before now. I was like, maybe she actually killed him before she got here. Maybe it was like a plan of like remove him from an equation, but the fact that she's talking like that makes it seem like that's not the case. But there's always a possibility that he shows up trying to stop her and she ends up killing him because she might be thinking like, well, you're going too soft, daddy, or the fact is you're too weak and you're too sick. I'm doing you a favor by taking you out of the equation. So I'm very interested to see where that whole situation goes from here. Like I said, a little back and forth and just where we are now. It's like, I mean, but I am curious to see what Sophia does do because she doesn't have an army. But I guess in her situation is like, she can still use the GCPD in her favor because it's like, well, Penguin's going to be coming after me and you, Jim, are going to want to avoid a war. So obviously it'd be in your favor to fight against him and everything. So I don't know. Because it did seem like things were going to go well between Penguin and Jim when they made that deal early on, especially like all the back and forth they've had over the course of the series. So being on good terms at some point, being on bad terms, others. I feel like they've been on good terms more often than they have been bad. At least one or two more times good than bad, you know? But another big part of this episode was learning about the pig. We ended up learning that he's gotten a crap ton of plastic surgery. And I thought it was so fascinating. I was like, ooh, what's this all about? Because at first I was thinking like, oh, the fact is like his face was all messed up. I was like, oh, are they doing a clay face thing? It's like actually clay face. It's like, no, that really is pig. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, we haven't seen Clayface since last season, since doing that whole thing to mess with Oswald. But nevertheless, I was wondering if that was about. It's like, no, he's had plastic surgery. I was like, oh, why change your appearance? Especially for Jim, he points out, I was like, Pig wants attention, yet he hides his identity. And why is that? It turns out that he's actually, because the whole Pig persona is fake. The accent, like the kind of like the way he talks, prim and proper way he talks. He's trying to make himself look more sophisticated than he is. For what purpose? I don't know. That's why he's hiding his identity, because he wants to reinvent himself as someone better, someone cooler in a sense, in a twisted way. Because his real name is Laszlo. He was a serial killer before then, but it wasn't aimed at cops. So it's like, what? Because he made it seem like there were people, like, especially the persona he adopted, he made it seem like something happened to him in Gotham that made him want to start aiming after cops, trying to clean it up. But it's like, you were a serial killer before, so it's like, why now? Was it someone important? Like I said before, it seems like it was someone important that was taken from him, you know, family, a lover, whatever the case may be, that kind of pushed him to be where he is now. But it's like, because even Jim's like, as a serial killer, it doesn't make sense. Serial killers typically don't change their MO, like, don't change their thing. Like, cops wasn't his thing before, but now it is. And he's got this whole Pig persona of like pretending to be someone, because he drops the accent. He has a very heavy Southern accent. And I thought, oh, that's so interesting. He's trying to make himself seem smarter than what he is, which I think he is smart. I mean, because no matter what front he's putting up, he still set up all these traps and everything. So set up all these situations. So I don't know. It's very interesting. I mean, sadly, it ends with Laszlo getting away. So I'm very curious to see where that goes going forward. Kind of another villain on the loose. Not too surprised. Why? Because people bust out of Arkham literally all the time. Like, I think that's just all across Batman canon. People are like, do something about Arkham. It's literally like the joke about the Flash TV show, how like people literally walk into Star Labs. There's no security. It's like, there's always some bad guy breaking out of Arkham across any canon, you know? I wonder, is there any storylines where Arkham Asylum is super secure, like no one ever gets out? It's like, I think you can't have it like that. To be fair, it's kind of a shady run place, a very shabby and shady run place, like we've seen all across the series. So it's kind of like, well, no wonder like villains escape all the time, just because it's like, you know, when you had a man like Hugo Strange running it, it's kind of to be expected, you know? So, oh yeah, I almost forgot about the other storyline this episode, and that dealt with Lee. She's dealing with this other guy trying to take over her territory in the Narrows. That she's kind of stepped up as a new boss, and she's trying to help people out and everything. And thought that was kind of neat. Like, she's trying to keep everything amicable. You know, helping them out as a doctor, but as, you know, as the leader, taking over this new position and everything. And she doesn't want to use violence, because she's teaching them not to use violence to resolve everything. So it's like, I can easily have Grundy go and rip the dude apart, him and his people, but it's like, I don't want to do that, because it's going to make me look like a hypocrite, you know? So don't, you know, not like a do as I say, not as I do type of situation. So, but nevertheless, Guy didn't listen, kind of messed with her and messed up her clinic. So she ended up poisoning him. I don't know whether she actually poisoned him, or whether she just did some medical like combination of stuff to make him feel like he was poisoned. Like maybe it just kind of upset his stomach, or just made him feel like he was poisoned, sick enough to feel like he's poisoned, or did Lee actually poison him? Because to me, that I was so curious to see what she's going to do, because I think, Lee's trying to stay on that right side of things, but then you have this whole I figured this situation was going to force her to kind of go in the dark side. There's even a part of me wonders like, oh, did Ed set this whole situation up? It's like, no, Ed's been beside her the entire time. So like I said, I'm curious, because that could be like, this could be a very mild start to something else. This could be like eventually Lee. I think it could be like the precursor to her going further and further down the dark side. I mean, we kind of definitely saw Lee's dark side last season, but that was because of the whole Tetch virus situation. But still, that brings up the situation of, well, the Tetch virus only probably it amplifies something that's already there. It's kind of the argument. So it's like, maybe that's already inside of her. It just took the Tetch virus to really bring it to the surface and, like I said, amplify it, so it's not like she's 100% like that on the inside, but there might be a smidge of, like everyone's got a little darkness in them, so that's all I'm kind of saying about that. So I wonder what this situation she's in kind of lead to her eventually kind of tapping into that more. And we did find out that, and I kind of figured as much with Ed. She was like, the reason why I didn't help you anything is because there's nothing wrong with you. Like, nothing physical. Everything wrong with his brain is psychological. And I kind of figured as much, because for him, it's just being frozen. And I think as the Riddler being defeated probably just broke him, because the last thing he went through was, as I brought it up earlier, like Penguin getting the upper hand, beating him, someone like the Penguin beating him, the Riddler. So I think that spoke volumes. And I think just that defeat, well, at first, Lee is like, it was from being frozen, but eventually it was just kind of like, I think it still applies to the fact of being beaten by Penguin of all people. Especially because he just, Ed's always thought of himself as superior than everybody. So I think it was just kind of a blow to his ego. I think that's why. And it seems like she knew this entire time, but she didn't say anything, because it's like she didn't want him to revert back to being the Riddler. Because it's like this Ed in front of her, the one in front of her, reminds her of the Ed that she knew at, when she first came to Gotham. The Ed that wasn't the Riddler, the Ed that was a good guy working with the GCPD and everything. That was her friend. So, but as we see, and I like what they do with that about Ed's whole situation, that the Riddler aspect of him is kind of like, almost kind of like his dark side. It's like another persona, because it's like, we see it reflected again, because in this episode, he looks and he sees the reflection. That's how the whole Riddler, well, that more darker side of Ed started showing itself in the first place, was originally, but now it's like the other Ed is disguised as a Riddler. So it's like him trying to fight off that other part of it. It's like, okay, I'm Ed again. No. Like, I can fight it. It's like, it's that whole situation. I've used this more recently in another podcast, but that whole conversation of what wolves you feed, the good wolf or the bad wolf, and depends on which one you're feeding. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what goes for. Obviously, Ed's going to go down that route of being the Riddler again. It's just a matter of time. I'm just curious to see how everything unfolds, because his main reason for sticking around was because of that. So I think he's probably still going to keep Grundy around, because it's like, well, he might be super smart, but he can always use Grundy's raw power, and it's like maybe he'll even try and use and manipulate Lee. We'll just kind of have to wait and see. And that whole situation has kind of got me thinking about something interesting, because it kind of goes back to another reason why Pig did what he did. It's because Jim kind of pokes fun of him. It's like, oh yeah, the fact of the matter is you've forgotten your old news. No one cares about you anymore. So I'm sure that was motivation for him to get out, and everything was to kind of prove himself. Like, that's what it's more of this persona is about, to proving himself, how much of a good bad guy he is, which even Jim's like, well, the fact of the matter is you're like second-rate bad guy. There's like plenty of psychos that kind of run things, who've kept themselves in people's minds. And it's almost kind of interesting, like from an outside perspective, outside of the show, it's like it almost kind of applies for people watching the show too, especially because like I'm not that well versed in Batman villains, so I knew nothing about the Pig prior to him popping up. Because like for me, it's like a lot of times it's like I only know like the top tier villains who've obviously popped up in Gotham. Obviously, there's people like Falcone. Like, I did not even know he existed prior to this. But obviously, top tier people, like, obviously, there's like Jerome, who's kind of a reference to Joker. But other top tier villains like Catwoman, Poison Ivy, Mr. Freeze, the Riddler, Penguin. Like, these are like top tier Batman villains that most people, even if you've never really read any comic books, but if you've watched like cartoons and stuff, like, you know who a lot of these villains are. So that's why I think it's almost another level of funny. The reason why, kind of like a little wink and a nod that Jim said that, but it probably wasn't even like that. It was probably just kind of like I said, just, obviously it was enough just to bother him. But I think if you apply it to outside the show, it can kind of represent that too. But at least that's how I was thinking about it. I could easily be overthinking it. So, like I said, overall, a great episode. I'm very interested to see where this all goes. Next week is the fall finale, so I'm very interested to see where it goes now. And now moving on to this week's episode of Van Helsing, a very good episode. Obviously in this episode, they're trying to try and go after Vanessa, because we still know nothing about the group that took her. But in this episode, they end up crossing paths with the cops. I thought that was so weird, because you saw them driving in a vehicle, and I was like, wait, what? Like, they still have vehicles and everything? I was like, that's so weird. Because you've never seen that in any most apocalyptic situations don't have that. I mean, some, your Walking Deads and stuff like that. But especially in this world, it's never come up. The only vehicle we've ever seen is Wanda. So that was just kind of interesting to me. But then it's like, I was like, okay, something's up. Something's weird here with this whole situation. Because they're like, oh yeah, come down to the place. Just keep your weapons outside. The moment they said that, I was like, yeah. I mean, that's to be expected, but at the same time, it's like, something's funky here. I don't really like it. And then it's like, oh, can we get some ammo from you? It's like, no, you ain't getting no damn ammo. We'll fill your belly, you get somewhere to sleep, can wash, but after that, you give you back your weapons, you're on your damn way. No bullets. I was like, oh, okay, I guess. I had an inkling about the whole cannibalism thing. I was like, we haven't come across that in the show so far, have we? Cannibals. I was like, that's typically associated with the apocalypse. I'm like, I was like, are they cannibals? I get the feeling, because they're talking about, like, Big Mama's like, oh yeah, I'm making something to eat. I was like, they're about to slice you up and make you food. Turns out not to be the case. But interestingly enough, they eat vampires. Didn't see that coming. I was like, okay, you're cannibal. I was like, oh, you're going to eat this group for food. It's like, no, you're not, because you only eat vampires, which they literally describe as like, it's like chicken, but sweeter. I'm like, that's so twisted. They almost halfway kill it, and then they cook it with UV lights. I'm like, dude, this is so twisted. It's weird. Because ultimately, at the same time, it's like, ultimately why Julius ended up killing Big Mama is because as a person who was once a vampire, it makes you a little sick. But at the same time, it's like, even if they are vampires, they're still technically people. But at the same time, there's still the whole aspect of like, well, you kill vampires on a regular basis. Is it really that big of a deal? They eat and cooked? I don't know. Like, it's like, do you really have the right to judge the whole humane aspect to it? But it's like, it's still weird. Even from an outside perspective, even if they're vampires, even if you're going to kill them anyway, it's probably like, oh, why let good meat go to waste? It's still weird because you're still eating people. They might be vampires, but it doesn't matter. I mean, hell, when it was all said and done, it's like, oh yeah, Julius ended up telling them the truth about their situation. Like, oh yeah, we actually turned back into humans. It's like, I wonder how that tastes. So it's like, bump that. Like, you're just looking for an excuse to eat anybody. It's not even just vampires. It's like, you're possibly human now? Who cares? I'll eat you. It's like, wow. It's a like super duper weird and crazy episode in that regard, because it's like, this is probably like the most effed up group that we've ever come across. I mean, there was a group in Eden, but that was just them being misled. Because the dude played by Tom Cavanaugh last season, that dude was just kind of exchanging babies to, I forgot the vampire's lady's name. It was actually, in actuality, it was his wife, who had turned into a vampire that he had made that whole deal with. But, like, I think this is probably, like, the most messed up group we've ever met, and it's crazy. At least the other groups we've ever met across the show, it's kind of like, they're kind of messed up. Like, the juvenile groups, it's like, they had their own little, like, society where they had their own rules and everything. Things didn't always work out, but it's like, there was some reasoning to it. At least in this group, it's like, wait, what? And they're all cops too, which I kind of didn't expect that, but I guess it's like they were a one department that, how they ended up surviving all this time. I mean, because they're fully stocked with a lot of ammo. I mean, who's to say whether or not they actually took that from people or not? But then again, they said I mean, I can't believe their story that basically they rounded up from all the gun shops and stuff ahead of time when all those people were getting turned into vampires anyway. So, I don't know. It started bringing up some interesting questions because basically they want to start up a witch trial type of situation. It's like, yeah, so basically we're going to hang you if you die. It's like, oh, you were a human. And it's like, wait, what? Why are you going to use like the most idiotic logic in history? Which when in retrospect, it's like, yeah, people like during the Salem witch trials were stupid. It's like, oh, if you drowned, you were a person. It's like, well, that shouldn't that weigh on your conscience that you just killed an innocent person because you thought they were a witch? It's like, well, you're possibly a vampire, so. But when you had Doc being like, you idiots, it won't do you any good, like, because a vampire wouldn't die from being strangled like that. It happened, but it would take a long while, so that's not a good enough like choice to really determine whether or not someone's a vampire or not. They even talked about, it's like, well, they hung one old guy. It turned out he was just a drunk, and it's just like, they are literally the definition. Like, they are just, oh my god, they are like, I think they are like the nth degree stereotypical redneck, because even like Axel early on in the episode was like, rednecks make the best barbecue. But the fact of the matter is they are on a next level of stupid. Like, obviously they are fictionally stupid with the way they're at. It's gonna be good, like, we're gonna have this, it's like, really? Like, they're on some Squidbillies hillbilly level shit, like, almost. It's mind-blowing. I was like, and what I loved about this episode too, it was a very Scarlet and Axel episode because you got them going back and forth. And I really feel like this is our first episode really getting to dive into Scarlet's like personality. And she's kind of like a shit talker. She's very sarcastic, and I was like, dude, her being so funny to guys. Like, yeah, I might have, such a waste of a pretty face. I have to get up on that. She's like, well, you have to, like, the only way you're going to get up on that is if I was dead. And then like, he's like, oh, you got anything smart to say, funny to say? He said that to, Julius, and Julius is like, well, yeah, I'll punch, well, you touch me and I'll make you punch yourself repeatedly with your own fist. That's kind of funny. It's like, dude, I love it. I also feel bad for Julius because he was sitting there enjoying the hell out of that jerkiness. Like, yeah, you might not want to do that. And it's like, it makes you wonder if the situations were different. If they weren't in their respective situations, if they weren't vampires, would like Julius have felt that same way? Like, would he have been like, well, you just do your own thing, or would they have humanized him anyway? Because all three of them, with the exception of Scarlet, had been down that route of like, oh, I mean, especially Axel was like, being a vampire wasn't that long ago for him, so it's a little fresh in his mind. It's like, yeah, let's get the hell out of here, because that could have easily been one of them there if the situation was reversed. So it's kind of, that's why Julius killed that vampire, because like, no matter what, like, you don't deserve this to be kind of cooked like that and everything. Wasn't expecting him killing Big Mama like that though, so I was halfway expecting her to end up knocking him out, but she couldn't knock him out. So also, I appreciate, like I said, going back to what I was bringing up earlier, Axel and Scarlet had that whole bath conversation, because it's like, oh yeah, you know, me and Vanessa, we shared a shower before. It's like, he makes it sound like it was a regular thing. I mean, maybe it was, but I could have sworn they only did it one time. I mean, they showed it off in the show one time. I don't think it happened more than once. But she's like, oh, don't expect, oh, you wish it was something like that, like me and you would do that. And she was kind of like, and he was kind of like, yeah, I do wish. I really do. And because it's so interesting, because it's like, they have like this funny kind of flirty relationship, which is almost seems like it, even more so than him and Vanessa. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, it seems like they're gelling together well. So, like I said, I really appreciate this because of that whole aspect of, like, kind of getting to know Scarlet a little bit more and seeing her, like, interactions with the different characters and stuff like that. So, it's like I said, because it's almost like in a weird, twisted way. It's kind of like a horror like comedy episode is what I'm trying to say. Nevertheless, it just kind of had that vibe to it. It's just kind of interesting. So, really quickly, it's kind of interesting too, because Scarlet makes it seem like she's come across the sisterhood before, because she, like, the moment she's like, it's the sister, I was like, oh, so you've met them. Like, she's like, they're pretty tough. So I wonder what her circumstances were exactly. Like, I mean, we still don't know 100% of like what Scarlet's been up to, like, this entire time. She's kind of been on her own, you know, because her dad trained her quote-unquote dad trained her for like a long time to kind of be prepared for all this, probably, you know, knowing who she really is and Van Helsing and everything, which does beg the question, what would have happened to Scarlet? Like, we don't know, like, to the extent of like how far Vanessa's powers went. I mean, she died and came back, but it's like, if she dies again now, like, how much damage could she sustain before she ended up dying? I mean, it seems like, to be fair, I was like, okay, we're still in that debate of like, what's 100% Scarlet, and I mean, what's 100% of Van Helsing, and what's the vampiric ability? Like, I still keep throwing out there, like, her healing ability, like Vanessa's healing ability, has to be a side effect of the vampirism, just like the whole like getting stronger from human blood, that has to be it. So I doubt Scarlet would be able to recover from like hanging. I don't know if like her wounds would recover too. So we see like because that was a question kind of got brought up in the last episode too. It's like how far can her abilities go to? Because she does have enhanced abilities. Because it's like, oh, you can see out there. It's nighttime. It's like she's like, I guess I can. I guess she never really. I think being around. Maybe she never tried, or maybe being around Vanessa has kind of like reawakened that vampire that Van Helsing inside of her. Especially because it seemed like it happened like a lot. I mean, maybe it has something to do with like Vanessa biting her, because it really seemed like things kind of kicked into overdrive then. I mean, not just for Vanessa, maybe things happened for her, but it's like maybe like these Van Helsing are because they're actually twins, aren't they? Yeah, I think that's what it was. I think they're not just sisters, they're twins. So maybe being reunited kind of jump started her Van Helsing ability. I mean, to be fair, she's never been put in a situation where it's come up. She's never been bitten before. She's never tried biting a vampire, so she doesn't know where she stands in the whole situation. So I mean, that's still kind of fascinating. So, but another side of this episode was about the Lucky and Phil coming across the group from the camp that obviously they went to, that Doc was originally at, that has Callie. They were all being kept by Dimitri and the Sisterhood for meals. I felt bad for that poor guy that got his jaw ripped off, and then the guy leading the Sisterhood like started eating it. That's kind of interesting because there was this look like Dimitri is like, we're going to rest because the humans need to rest because we need to keep them alive and in good health because we need to feed on them. So I was like, well, we should rest during the day because that's when we can't walk. So we should rest then. He's like, no, this is how we're going to do it. And you had one of the Sisterhood looking at him when he was taking the orders and then looks back at Dimitri, because the Sisterhood had their own problem with the Dimitri. I don't know whether it's because of the Sisterhood themselves did or was it specifically Maya, because it might be a situation where Maya had a problem with Dimitri and then she went off and started the Sisterhood or whatever. I am curious about like what that is, because we still don't know what it is, the bad blood between them. I mean, it doesn't matter now because Maya's dead and now the Sisterhood is working with them because dude that killed her now takes control. And I think for them it's kind of like, in that one Sisterhood member in particular, it's like, we're taking orders from a guy who's taking orders from Dimitri. So it's like probably in her mind it's like maybe we should just remove it the middleman and just kind of just take orders directly from Dimitri. Or maybe it goes back to, like I said, like they hate Dimitri, so maybe it's like they're thinking about taking him out, but I don't think any of them are strong enough to do it, so. Because it seems like the main target now is Scarlet. So I wonder, do they know that Vanessa's been taken off the board for them to say specifically Scarlet? Or maybe it's just because Scarlet's a lot easier to deal with than Vanessa. Like, Vanessa's too much of a wild card. Like Scarlet might be, since she's potentially just kind of a regular human Van Helsing and not kind of a special breed like Vanessa is, then maybe that'd be like, oh, we can take her easily. I don't know what that's all about. Or maybe it's because, I forgot which one had the key last. I think Scarlet has it. So maybe that's one reason. I mean, there's still the whole fact is that they are connected to some level to the point that Dimitri is tapping into that whole dream situation with the Elder. So, like I said, we had nothing with Vanessa this episode finding. Maybe because this is all happening on their side of things. So maybe like next week's episode, we'll kind of dive into Vanessa or going forward. I don't know. I'm very interested to see that, like how that goes. Also like the whole, getting back to the whole Phil situation was kind of interesting because for whatever reason, Phil's kind of got in his mind, like, we'll save who we can save. I can't, like, worry about Muhammad. Muhammad's most likely dead by now. It's like, why would you immediately go to that? At the very least, turn, which Sam's not going to do that. He didn't do it to Felix. He's definitely not going to do it to Muhammad because he wants Muhammad to stay the same. So he's just going to keep Muhammad around. Like, maybe we'll kind of cut to that next episode, too, because we didn't see any hiding her hair of that. So I am curious to see, like, because I felt like everyone was so close to meeting up with each other, but now, like, we still don't know. Like, Muhammad separated from Lucky and Phil, and obviously Vanessa got taken by some, like, organization of highly trained people, operatives, government agents, whatever their situation may be. So I'm very interested to see what goes on in the next episode. Like, if not all of them, most of those people, the sheriff and his people, are probably going to end up dead next episode because they kind of underestimated, like, the Sisterhood because there's a lot more of them out there. And let's not also forget Dimitri's there too, so that's definitely not good. So I'm curious to see how the group's going to get out of this situation. They're tied up, got nooses around their neck. It's not a pretty situation. So I was hoping like someone was going to save them in the end. I love that that guy was in the middle of saying something like, "Oh, we're up here on the roof. No one's going to," and then literally gets a spear through his chest. And you have Scarlet being sarcastic, like, "Well, oh, excuse, oh, what did he say? I couldn't hear him over him getting stabbed through the chest like that." I was like, once again, I love her personality. Like, it's kind of an interesting contrast to like Vanessa, because I feel like almost in like a comedy duo, like Vanessa's kind of the straight man, and then I feel like Scarlett's just kind of like, she almost plays. They seem like, it seems like they're making her like the sarcastic asshole or something like that amongst the twins, and I just like that, thinking about that. Like I say, it was just kind of like a creepy, slightly in a dark horror type of way, kind of funny episode in certain regards. I don't know, that was just kind of an interesting tone for the episode. Like I said, it's just kind of like, oh, we're supposed to save Vanessa, let's have this little side trip and see what happens, you know? So that was pretty cool. So like I said, very interested to see what goes down in the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.